With level A, we were doing our lap sitting. With level B, we start introducing more writing components, and we are talking about our letters and our numbers, just simple, A makes the A sound. They are practicing writing it. But once we get to level C, which is called Animals, Alphabet, and Aesop, um, we're working further to develop the letter sounds to eventually, by the end of the semester or by the end of the year in level C, blending simple words like cat, bat, and sat. It's the culmination of all of the readiness levels. And so you really want to make sure before we move on to level 1 that the skills are really mastered in level C. So if they're having any difficulty with any of the letter sounds, you really want to stay in this level until you've mastered those sounds and rhyming and things like that. The number lessons build from level B. Increasing number identification, number values, counting, and the vocabulary for quantity, number, shape, and size. Again, the student becomes a little more student-like in this level. This level, I really wish I would have found it for my oldest daughter when we started, because it was really the perfect amount of academic work for a 5-year-old, or skill level based for academic chronological age of 5 years, or skill based. And there's with the increase with the so that it doesn't seem too babyish for some of our children who might be older, there are things like this Christian Liberty reader that talk about animals. We have our fables that we listen to, and this particular book comes with a CD, and so I typically would download it onto the iPod so that, again, it's something that could be listened to outside of our lessons, and was really able to enjoy it. There are a lot of crafts, but in this level in particular, the read alouds are really tied to your lesson. In level C, it feels like you really need the complete package to reap the fullest benefit. So for example, on week 3, we're learning the letter D. And the story that you read is the 10 Little Rubber Ducks book. And you play Duck, Duck, Goose. There in the scissors book, there is something to color and cut out that is, a duck. There's a poetry book that I don't have on me right now. It's called Animals, Animals, and the poem you're going to read is called The Duck. You're going to read the D animal in here, which is D is for dolphin. Then for one of the craft days, they tell you to paint ducks, to watercolor ducks in a pond. And then the craft for the week, you use your thumbprint to make little ducks inside the pond. And so everything works together to build upon that letter literacy. And that becomes really important because in the next semester, the children are going to be learning to blend some of their letters to simple words. So we want to make sure that those letter sounds are really solidified. And I did skip the book list. So we get a few more books in this. A good portion of it are the read aloud books. And again, they do tie to the lesson, so you do kind of need them in the right order. And then we're still doing, for one of the math books, we're using another one of the Rod and Staff books. It's called Going On Eagerly. And that ties in with our number books that teach simple counting, number lines. This is actually scheduled in Memoria Press Kindergarten, but I really liked it in this level because it adds a little bit more math to their level. They color different numbers, and it adds shapes and gets into the teens and things like that. This was book 2. And then for the letters, you're going to be using the alphabet book, and they really do start forming their letters. At the beginning of the year, I would write I would write my daughter's name and highlight, and then she could trace inside of it. And then as we transitioned through the year, I mean, she was able to do it, not fantastic, but we kept working on it. And, you know, by the letter J, we got it looking a little bit better as we spent the time working through our letters. Some fun things. There is a Bible book. This is not, they used to have this in the book, but I think maybe this went out of print. So there is a different Bible book, but I think it features the same, where there's a letter, K, keep your tongue from evil and your lips from telling lies. There are fun little activities, like it tells you to make a self-portrait of yourself. This was my son, and he was wearing glasses, and his little shoes just looked like that. I thought that was a really fun activity. They have you working on calendar skills, and so you're supposed to write the months of the year and then draw a picture for, I like these kind of activities because it's something that the kids can do. You could write out the calendar, and then it's something that they could do while you go maybe work with another child. My younger daughter in particular liked to copy the words from First Start Reading with her stamps. She would do this all day long. It kept her busy, and that was good. So there's another one where she was blending all of them. This is another one of the, in this book, so in level B, all the crafts are tied to the letters. In level C, all the crafts are tied to the book. I think this is the house that Jack built. And then we read the little red hen, and this is the little red hen craft. There was an activity where you learn about the different food groups, and you pass, you know, a ball, and you talk about the different kinds of food groups. So lots of movement is scheduled in this level. And we really spent a lot of time, especially in level C, using a lot of other hands-on materials. So my daughter, for example, would make Play-Doh. She'd actually make the letters out of Play-Doh. So she's got her little workbook there, so she would know how to form it. And we also used letter tiles, which I can show those too. That's for my other. Well, I moved that box because I couldn't see something. The power went out right before this started. Here we go. I found them now. I bought these little letter beads, and I store them in here so they're in alphabetical order. And instead of stringing them on a string, she could have taken the words and put them on a pipe cleaner. And the thing that I liked about these letters is they are shaped, you know, like the letters. So there's B, and there's P, and there's D. And so you have to turn the letters the exact right way to be able to form the letter correctly. Let's see what else. As with previous levels, you want to establish a good routine, including an opening and a closing. And they do start in this book. You're going to do the First Start Reading A. And you don't have to necessarily master this, because in level 1, you will start right away. You'll redo this book, but you color the pictures, you start reading I Am Sam, and by the end of the year in this grade, you're reading sentences like that man ran, Sam is tan. They are tracing, but then as they get a little further in, they'll start writing their own words. There's always a picture to draw. And then by lesson 23, they're reading very simple sentences. So in our sample lesson, it starts with prayers for children. Then you'll read something from the Bible book. You're going to start memorizing Psalm 23. It breaks it up just 1 to 3. Then there's a recitation, and you'll ask, how many senses do we have? Name them. And some of these recitations come from the activities that they've done in previous weeks. So the recitations do build on one another. There's a calendar activity. What day is it? What month is it? I did have a little magnetic calendar that we put out every day, and they would put out the weather and they would change the date and things like that. Is it cold? Is it hot? What kind of clothes do we want to wear? When you're doing your alphabet writing, we, always reviewing the pencil grip. You introduce the letter dog, day, daisy, duck. Then there's an alphabet lesson for the day, a handwriting lesson. My favorite part was this show and tell. And so we're going to talk about birds. What makes a bird a bird? How many legs does a bird have? Then you go through your number lesson. Numbers book, part 1. I made a note here that said he had a hard time writing the number 2, and so we pulled out sandpaper letters, and I think we had to stay on this particular lesson a little bit longer because he was unable to write those. Then there'll be an activity and a craft, and that alternates with music. And so then there's a fun, it says fill a bucket or sink with water, and you're going to do a float test. So there's a little bit of science that is introduced in this level. Then there's a scissors book. Then you'll talk about your read aloud book, your literature, and there's a series of questions that you ask to continue to build that oral language. The poetry continues the animals book. And then there's always some enrichment, and that's usually the animals book. And then there is a coloring book that goes with it, this book. And it's a little bit harder, a little bit more detailed than your regular books. And so this is the level, this is the letter D that went along with that lesson. My kids, and it does actually break it down for you already. So this says you color the dove and the duck one day, and then you color the dragonfly, the insect, the dolphin the next day. So it does already break it down for you. But if that's too much, again, you can spread it out over more days. And then there's still a spot for any therapies that you might need. And then you should end your day with the Prayers for Children book. And this is a 4-day-a-week curriculum. It's scheduled for 4 days. At the back of the manual, there are reproducibles to practice writing your name. And I did the same thing for my son where I highlighted it and he traced inside until he got the hang of it. In A, B, and C, there's always a summer review. Or not a review, but there's some work that you can do during the summer to keep the learning going over the summer. It doesn't usually take very long to do that. Again, you don't want to forget to ignore these parts in the manual that, test their cognitive abilities, and then there'll be some different things here for working on those particular skills.